All right, this is JPEG the Raw, show number 155, recorded on September 15th, 2015. And tonight we have Tim and I, we're going to talk about some recent topics, and we have a new person, Stephen Miller, should say your full name. Stephen, welcome to JPEG the Raw.
Thank you.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I live in Arizona, and I'm 26 years old. I've been doing photography for probably going on 3 years now. The bulk of my work right now is mostly real estate. I do a little bit of portraits and the occasional wedding that floats my way.
And we met you through our Facebook group, right? I think that's where I met you. Tim,
Yes.
I don't know if you ever go in the Facebook group, but
Rarely.
and
I'd like to say I'm old, but yeah, you're my age, so it just doesn't help.
That's true. And I need to say this in a way that doesn't sound negative because I mean it very positively. But I think your photography has just grown leaps and bounds since you first came into the group. The group didn't have anything to do with it. That's all you.
Oh, the group had a lot.
So I don't want to. I mean to say that, but it's fun watching somebody. You know, I remember some of the first real estate photos you put up. They were fine, but the ones you're putting up now, if you put them side by side, they're like, wow, they're much better than they were before. And sometimes when you see the first ones and you think, yeah, those are pretty good, and then later you see, the ones as you grow, then you go back and look at the other ones. You go, okay, yeah, maybe I wasn't as good back then. I know I do that with some of my work, and I haven't grown as much as you have with that. But that was fun to watch. You grow, and then you recently have bought what do you call it? Drone. You bought a drone. Yes, you got into drone photography. You've posted some of those out there too.
Yep. Yeah, that's a real fun kind of endeavor to go down. Definitely, you can incorporate it with a lot of different things. So, kind of a fun adventure, and we'll see where that takes off. No pun intended.
Well, you know, when we had Randy Henderson, who came on for the real estate show, with some of the you never know which ones are going to take off. And that real estate one, I didn't know how much it would appeal to different people. And then once we did it, there was some people posting in a Facebook group who were posting some real estate photos. But after the Randy one, it just seemed to explode for a while with a lot of real estate people coming out there. And, you know, I have recently been looking at, or let's say dreaming about the many years from now when I get to retire and buy a house. And I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, looking at houses that, you know, are many years away from me ever affording, if ever. And I look at some of those and think, they're awful, the photos that you're seeing there. And you wonder how much better this house would sell if they had someone like you, Stephen, shooting for them. And just some of these houses, you know, when you look at houses, sometimes you look beyond what you can afford. And, you know, then you go back.
Usually you do, yes.
Then you go back and look at the houses, and these are all online. I'm not actually visiting them. Then you go back and you look at the houses you can afford, and you're really disappointed. But what I was when I was looking at them, even the houses that were beyond what I can afford, many of them did not have very professional photos. I mean, they looked like some of them maybe even from a cell phone camera, others definitely not from someone who knew what they were doing. And I was instantly turned off. And then you go to a house that may or may not be any better than the last one you look at. And you see these photos that are well done, and you go, wow, that house is so much better than the one I just looked at, when it may not actually be. But it's the photos that did it. And that, to me, is huge. And I don't know what your business is doing, and you know, you share whatever you're willing to share. But I'm hoping that you know, more real estate agents are realizing that and are going to start hiring more photographers to do this for them, because it's got to help them sell.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely does. There's such from my understanding of getting on a real close basis with the realtors that I work with, it sounds like there's a major barrier to entry as far as those first few seconds, the initial contact on the internet with the potential buyers. I mean, they were giving me statistics of like 5 to 10 seconds, maximum of 25 photos, you know, and it's like sometimes not even that's, you know, you're starting to see more video roll out. There's so many changing parts of the industry and everything that you're starting to see this huge barrier to entry that if you don't wow them within the first few moments they look at it, they're going to turn away and never come see the house anymore. So, I mean, you've really got to have a quality product there nowadays. In fact, I just had one of the realtors write an article in a magazine. He writes for a local magazine here, and he wrote an article about how having quality photography is absolutely essential for real estate. And he's the #1 realtor here in the community.
As a non-real estate photographer, but as someone who is just browsing houses, I could definitely see that. If I looked at it and that opening imaging, I can see in this case what I was looking at. I can see thumbnails too. If they all looked, not very well lit and they, not in a good angles or not in anything that was appealing. Let's say that. I didn't spend much time on it. I mean, there had to be something else to have grabbed me to say, stay here. But there's something about when you go to the page and that first image and even some of the thumbnails, like, ooh, those look interesting. just being better lit is part of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that I want to look through all the photos, and at least I'm looking through the photos and I'm making a decision whether I like this house or not. But you're right. If it's not appealing, I may not look at anything beyond that initial photo, and then I say, and move on to the next one.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and then a lot of composition is something I've really worked and strived on as well. I try and shoot very leading into the photo. I'll capture a room and then try and shoot it leading into the next room. So the person will be like, ooh, well, what's in that next room? I see a piece of that. And then they'll try and move into there, look at the next photo.
Right.
You want to keep them flipping through and then get them out there to that house.
Yeah.
So
Tell that story, which is what you're trying to do for them.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, has anybody started to use it all like drone photography, get the aerial view of the house?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that is a very, very big commodity out here. I'm sure everywhere really, but yeah, the realtors definitely are like sharks to the kill on that.
Okay. And I've noticed that in some of the houses I was looking through, Tim, is that some of them had that, out there. That lower third didn't work very well. But I've seen some of that out there too, and it's a cool shot. That right there almost makes me stop and look at some of them. The other thing is, as you're looking through the photos or looking at the houses that have some of the crappy photos, and I thought maybe the real estate agent thought this house will sell fast. There's no reason for me to spend the money on some photographer, or maybe I just don't see the value in that. And then you look at this house that's been on the market for 400 days. You think, well, I'm sure photos are not the magic trick that's going to sell this thing. But, I mean, I don't know what the typical house, what would a $500,000 house, what would the typical charge be for, shooting a house that's, let's say, 3,000 square feet, $500,000. Just give me a ballpark.
Yeah, just the photos, that would be about $150. Depending on how far away it is, if it's over 25 miles, I'll add a little money extra for charge, another $25 for gas and travel out there. But yeah, and then it goes on from there depending on what else they want to add. One secret with the video lately that's been kind of a secret tip of mine I'll give to anyone out there is Animoto has been absolutely fantastic. If you want to throw, 15 of the best pictures up there, choose a really upbeat but kind of maybe instrumental music, and then do captions on each photo. That's been a great extra generator for me, to pay a low fee for Animoto, but then I make, $25 a video. It's fantastic. And I have one client that adds it on every house. It's the shoot plus a video.
There
So that's been a great commodity as well.
And Alicia says that, one of the houses she looked at online, the white balance is so off that it was pink and had a pink hue everywhere. That's the other thing.
That might appeal to some people.
The number one biggest thing I've learned, besides the technique of how to shoot the houses and everything that Randy was so gracious to teach me, was color correction and getting those colors dead accurate. Because a realtor or a client will absolutely tear you apart if you do not have those colors spot on. That kitchen is not green; it is a blue.
Yeah.
They really will let you know if you have the colors even the slightest off.
Now I know you were doing this on in your spare time on weekends or nights or whenever you could, and with a dream of someday becoming a full-time photographer. Anything you could share with us on how that's coming?
Sure.
I hate to
So
put you
far,
on the spot like this.
no, that's okay. I'll share. I'll share whatever. Yeah, it's doing pretty good so far. I'm pretty close to matching my day job.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah,
That's nice.
within probably a year, I've been able to come close to matching my salary at my day job, and I won't quit yet because benefits and everything like
Sure,
that
sure.
is something that you just can't beat. Plus 401k and all that stuff. That's stuff that you need, especially I have 2 kids, so. Yeah, it's getting there. I would probably say maybe another year or maybe 2 years at the most, I'd probably be able to go full time. So we'll see. I'd like to. That's definitely the goal in sight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the other thing too, and I've heard a lot of full-time pros say this, is that marketing and business are really big key players. And I've been heavily marketing lately, and that's what's really helped. I've gotten probably 6 new clients within the last 2 weeks. So that's
All the successful people we've interviewed online where this topic came up, all of them that we've interviewed, think back to Ryan Brennizer, who does like 80 weddings a year. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that was
How
crazy.
many weeks are there in a year? That's more than there are weeks. All of them will tell you that, look, you got to have the photography down. You got to have, what you're doing, getting the white balance, all that kind of stuff. That is understood. You're going to have that down. You don't have to be the absolute best masterpiece photographer, the Ansel Adams of your time. You don't have to be that. The more important thing is business. Once you've got the photography down, 80% of your success is going to be the business side versus the photography side, because you can be the greatest artist there is, but if you can't get any clients, they're not going to come to you. You got to go to them. So what Ryan has done, and this is not something you can do early on. Most people can't. Is he's outsourced what he's not good at, and he focuses on what he is good at. Now that is easy to do when you have 80 weddings a year you're shooting. You got to do something.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, having the business side, the marketing and the business, and watching the cash flow and all that kind of stuff is definitely a big part of running a successful business, any business. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, we called you in from the chat room, not to grill you and ask you a bunch of questions.
I was going to say, I thought we didn't have a guest today.
Yeah. So Stephen was not prepared to come in here and be grilled like this, but we appreciate you coming in. We wanted to just get your thoughts on some topics. And one of the topics I wanted to talk about was, for years, I don't know when it came out, but for a few years, Nikon has had the most megapixel, the camera with the most megapixels, a D800, and then eventually the D810. That's all right. The most megapixels on the market at 36 or something like that, I think it was. And I remember when it first came out, there were many people, some of them maybe not Canon, some of them maybe Canon users, Tim, maybe some of you Sony guys, and even some of the Nikon people who said, that's crazy. Who wants 36 megapixels? My computer, Lightroom's slow enough.
Yeah, really.
Why do I want 36 megapixels? And am I resolving past the capabilities of the lenses? Well, roll forward a couple of years, and now you have Sony, who's come out with a 42 megapixel. You have Canon, who's come out with a 50 megapixel, and rumors of 120 and maybe even a 250 megapixel. And I know for me personally, the 250 to 120 are beyond what I have no interest in those cameras. And first off, they're Canon, and I'm a Nikon shooter, but it wouldn't matter if they were Nikon. I have no interest in a 120 megapixel camera. Even though part of what I do is landscape, the other part is sports, I definitely would not want that for sports. Somewhere, I don't know where the sweet spot is for me, maybe 36 to 50, or maybe 36 is plenty. For sports, I don't even want 36. I'd want a crop mode. And if I had the camera that was for me, would probably be somewhere in the 36 to 50 range, but a crop mode that allowed me to shoot 8 to 10 frames a second. And maybe that was a 24 megapixel, something like that image, and that would be my sports shots. What are you guys' thoughts on these ultra high megapixel cameras, and do they interest you at all? Tim?
There's definitely no interest for me in that. I have 24 megapixel, 24 point something on my Sony A77, and I don't have a need for that. I don't usually crop out like that where I could say, well, I'm going to take out this 10% of the picture and use it to enlarge. And even when I enlarge anything, how many times is my printing beyond 8 by 10 or even 11 by 14 that I'm really worried about it? So for me, I don't see a need. And to be honest with you, I actually thought the megapixel race was over. I thought that was just a advertising thing to say we got the most megapixels, and it was for years. And I think once it got beyond probably the 12, 16 and to the 20, that was more than enough. My 24, like you said, is more than enough. I have large files. I don't need to have bigger files in my computer. It's enough on my storage as it is now. And I can imagine somebody like you who takes hundreds of pictures at a time, what that would do to your computer.
Me?
I mean, you definitely take a lot more than I do.
Well, if I'm at a swim meet, yes, I'm going to take 1,200 or so. It depends on how long it is. If I'm at like a longer swim meet, it could be way more than that. But it's a normal swim meet, it's going to be 1,200 images or so. Basketball is probably going to be 300 to 800 images. Depends on how long I'm there, of course. Yes, I don't need that many. What I would need more is, not a lot more, but a little more ISO. When I'm shooting in a gym,
yeah, ISO.
And I have right now, I have a 12 megapixel D700, which is still a great camera, but in today's standards, it's fallen behind a little bit. When I'm in a gym, even at f1.8, using my 85 millimeter, I'm shooting at ISO 6400 or so, because some of these high school gyms are just awful in their light. So I would love to get a fairly noise-free, maybe 2 or 3 stops beyond that 6400. And at that point, I'm fine. Now, as a landscape photographer, what I'm more interested in is dynamic range. I want wider dynamic range. Once I get 24, 36 megapixels, even as a landscape photographer, I'm fine. That's enough.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I use the D810 for real estate, and that kills me as far as space goes. I've just about filled up 2 terabytes on my hard drive just within the last probably 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's starting to get ridiculous. Unless you're doing a very specific type of work that you need that many megapixels for, I don't really see much need for it. I think it's a very niche camera, it seems like. So,
well, so you're in your real estate photography.
Uh-huh.
The end product, is it the web images that we're seeing?
Yes. So those images, I'm delivering at 2,000 pixels wide.
Yeah.
So they never see the light of day as far as the resolution goes. The one thing that I do want from the D810 is that dynamic range. Granted, I'm still doing HDR, but the dynamic range that I can pull out of those things is just absolutely phenomenal. So that's the only reason why I choose to rack the shutter up on that. But if I'm doing sports or anything else, I use my backup, which is the D610. Okay. And that's a little more reasonable on the hard drive. So
how big are are you shooting RAW with the A10?
Always, yeah, I always shoot RAW.
And how big are the files on the RAW for the A10?
I think they hover around, I want to say 27, 28 megabytes a picture, yeah.
So, of course, as you get these megapixels up, you get the 42 on the Sony, you get the 50 on the Canon coming out with the 120. You got to think about every component of your infrastructure. You got to think about the memory card. Mm-hmm. How much buffer is that camera going to have? I can't imagine shooting sports with a 120 megapixel camera. And that's probably not what they intend with this thing. They probably intend more for studio shots and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But even the 50 megapixel, I can't imagine shooting sports with that Canon or that Sony at full resolution and coming home with 800 50 megapixel cameras. How many cards am I going to need? And then how long is Lightroom going to take to pull all that up and then switch between them? It's a lot. And especially if you're in product, it doesn't need that much there.
I think with my SD cards on my D810, I'm roughly 180 shots. So it's not very much. I mean, you can burn through one pretty quick.
Yeah.
If you were doing a wedding, you'd have to buy one of the newer, 64 gigabyte cards or something higher in order to not have to constantly be switching out memory cards, just because they chew them up so fast. So,
well, there's another downside to having, of course, more megapixels, more resolution. Mm-hmm. So there is that plus. But there's a downside to more resolution. A couple of them. One is Canon on I think it was the 120 or maybe even the 50 megapixel. They only said 40% of their lenses were good enough to be used on that camera. Canon themselves.
Wow.
That only these lenses are good enough to be used on this camera. Now, good enough is somewhat subjective. What what Canon says may be good enough, may be different than what you and I say is good enough. So a lot of stuff with photography is subjective, but they're seeing some where the lenses can't resolve what the sensor can do, and that's why they're not recommending some of those lenses. So there's that. There's also something called diffraction, and every camera has diffraction. I don't know if either one of you know much about diffraction. I will start us off with I am not an expert in diffraction. I just know a little bit.
But you're going to explain it to us right now.
We've all encountered it. If you don't do anything but shoot wide open, you've encountered diffraction. Do either one of y'all know what diffraction is?
I've probably heard of it, but I know I could not explain it.
So you've heard of what is that? The chroma aberration, or what is that?
Chromatic aberration. Yes.
Yes. One of you, I think both of you guys said it right. That's something totally different. So what diffraction is as you start stopping down a lens, as you start closing that aperture, there's a point where you're not getting any more sharp. If you take an image at, let's say you got a 2.8 lens and you shoot at 2.8, it's going to have very shallow depth of field, but forget the depth of field.
Right.
Just look at what is in focus and how sharp it is. And then take that 2.8 and stop it down 2 stops. So let's say, you're going to go to 5.6, f5.6. That point where you're focusing on at 5.6 most likely is sharper than it was at 2.8, even though they're both inside the depth of field. So, and this will vary from lens to lens. So, what's good for one lens is not good for the other. So your thought was, okay, I'll just keep stopping down. The more I stop down, the sharper and sharper.
Go to f22, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go to f22. That spot's going to be even sharper than it was before. But there's a diminishing return that happens at some point, and it's 2 to 3 stops past the sweet spot. That in that case where I was talking about how it got sharper at f6, somewhere between 2 and 3 stops of wide open is usually the sweet spot, and it will vary from lens to lens. But you hit that sweet spot of focus where it's like maximum sharpness when it's in focus on that spot. Then it starts to diffract. And what happens with diffraction is it almost creates like a blurring effect. It gets less and less sharp. And as you continue to stop down, it'll get less and less sharp. So if you're shooting a landscape and you got trees in the background, let's say at f8, you can make out the leaves. As you went to f22, and you pull that image up, you may not be able to make out all those leaves anymore because they're blurring together. What's happening, if you think of a grid, and hey, behind Steven is sort of a grid.
Right, yes.
If you think of a tic-tac-toe, okay, think of a tic-tac-toe. And that center spot is 1 pixel or one dot. And light's hitting that thing, and it's a perfectly round right in the center of it. It's not touching any of the other squares, okay? As you stop it down, that light that's hitting there gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it starts bleeding over into the other squares, and the other squares starts bleeding over into it, and that causes that blurring effect that's happening. Now think, as you shrink the squares, so with a higher megapixel camera. So you kept the sensor the same size, it's a full size sensor, but as you put more megapixels on there, those squares got smaller. That means that diffraction starts at a much sooner rate and gets worse much faster. So with I'm talking in generality here. I don't have the actual math in front of me, but and I don't know the math, so I couldn't explain it to you, but I'm sure somebody's figured it out. With the 42 or the 50 megapixel camera, let's say diffraction starts at f8. Maybe, I think it's even less than that. I think it starts below that. With your camera, your 24 megapixel Tim, you may not start noticing any diffraction until f10 or f12 or something like that. where with the 50 megapixel, you start noticing at f8. So if you are someone shooting wide open, then go ahead, Stephen.
Sorry.
Well, if you're somebody shooting wide open, then this doesn't matter to you. You know, you're not getting diffraction at all. But if
Right.
you're someone who's stopping down, if you are, you know, landscape photographer or something, somebody who's shooting at f8, f10, f16, something like that, you are losing resolution because of diffraction. Does that make sense?
I remember my first photos before I had a deeper knowledge than I do now of Rocky Mountain National Park, where I was shooting at like f22. You know,
Right,
I thought, okay, stopping down is the best thing I could do. Here I am. I'll just, you know, crack open the aperture and shoot as you know, stop down as I can, and it'll be great. And I printed out my photos, and I quickly found out that that was not the case.
So in that case, would you be better off than using a neutral density filter if you needed to stop out more light? Or just lower the ISO, I guess, as well could be done.
Well, yeah, for me, I can go to 64 now with the 810, but I still actually, this last trip, I still heavily used ND filters, definitely.
Okay.
Especially there's a lot of waterfalls and stuff like that. So, I mean, you want to get that misty water effect, then yeah, I always suggest for landscapes carrying a nice set of ND filters with you.
Tim, here's where my knowledge starts to wane, but I don't. If you kept it at f22 and put an ND filter on it, I think you still get the same diffraction.
Oh, I'm sure. No, that's not what I meant. I wasn't talking about doing at neutral density F. I was saying at f8, if you needed to stop the light down, instead of stopping down your lens, use a neutral density filter.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what you have to do. Now, you know, the question comes up, okay, so does that mean that if I do need to shoot at, you know, f16 or if I f12 because of my landscape photography, which if you're using a wide angle lens, you generally don't have to stop down that much. But let's say you do, and you say, well, so is it worth it to me to go to a 50 megapixel camera if I'm going to lose all that resolution due to diffraction? And I think that, and, you know, I don't know this for sure, but what I've read on it is a higher resolution camera is still going to out-resolve a lower resolution camera, that you'll be able to gain some of that back. So even if a Canon, you know, 5DS starts to diffract at f5.6, and by f8 it's, you know, full stop more of diffraction than maybe a you know, D810, I think you'll still get more resolution out of it, because you can sharpen some. You can sharpen some of the diffraction out, but I think once diffraction starts and you are 2+ stops beyond where diffraction started, you start losing the ability to sharpen out the diffraction.
Right.
And at some point, you know, if it diffracts enough, sharpening may actually make it worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's some of the reviews out there of even the 50 megapixel 5DSR. I mean, they're saying that just because it has more megapixels, the noise isn't any better. In fact, there's pictures of the 810 and the 5DSR next to each other at 100% zoom, and you've got way more noise still in the Canon. So, you know, just because there's more megapixels or higher resolution and stuff like that doesn't mean they're better quality. You've still got, you know, a range of things to work with.
Yeah, I think what's happens is technology will keep advancing. So you can't say this will stop at any point. Mm-hmm. But the smaller those pixels get, meaning the more megapixels you jam into that full frame sensor, the harder it gets to control noise. And that's, you know, you get to a point where the noise is not going to be better because you have more megapixels. I think Sony is pushing Canon and Nikon, you know, and coming out with sensors that are blowing them away. And if they don't respond fairly quickly, you know, who knows what will happen. But Sony is, I don't know if it's the A7R2, Tim, or another one where they have
A7S.
They have one that's got
A7S.
They have one with 400,000 ISO.
409,640 ISO.
And I don't know if y'all have seen. I don't know if y'all have seen any of the shots, the test shots from that.
Yeah,
Stephen?
it's pretty amazing, but
Yeah.
it's also a very expensive camera.
Right. Well, it's not that much more expensive than a D810.
You're right.
And I don't know if you've
You know, it's more expensive than what I'm willing to pay. I
more
guess.
expensive than what I'm willing to pay. But I don't know
At
if
the
you
time when it first came out, yeah,
yeah.
the price drop has made me sick. But
But the what you're seeing from there, the ISO performance you're seeing from that camera, the Sony one, is just mind-boggling. It's really good. It's far better than Canon and Nikon is putting out right now. Now Nikon does use Sony sensors, so I'm hoping we'll see that in Nikon. Because for me, I think the future is mirrorless cameras.
Right.
I'm just not willing to go there yet, and I'm hoping that someday Nikon will will start to advance the F mount with mirrorless cameras, and I won't have to go and buy all new lenses.
yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
It's interesting to see where it's going. Definitely.
I didn't think I'd see the day where the lenses, especially the high quality lenses, would be suddenly obsolete for, I guess, a better. And they're probably not obsolete. I mean, I'm sure if I used it, it would look perfect on there, but in my eyes, at least.
No, but obsolete is a good term because we've all grown. At least I've grown up with the thought is lenses are forever. Camera bodies are replace them, but get good quality lens, take care of it, and you'll keep it for a long time. Where the body is something that you use it for a while and then you upgrade that, but the lenses stay forever. And now, if you're going to be going up to some of these high megapixel cameras, the lenses start to come in question, and what lenses should I buy? It gets very expensive if I got to buy the absolute best of every lens I'm going to buy.
Yeah.
But again, for me, I don't need that. The 810, like you have, Stephen, I would love that camera, and that would be enough pixels for me.
Yeah, I think I used to have the what's it called, the gear syndrome, where you got to have it, and
Right.
I think with the 810, I think that's all I'll ever really need. It was just kind of a lot of hype and a lot of growing in the industry and in the hobby and turning the hobby into more. You get excited and you want to get the best and newest. And now that I'm starting to do it more often, I see that that's more than enough. Rarely will I ever blow images up to where I'll need that 6,000 by 4,000 ratio. So yeah, it's getting a little ridiculous. That's probably for somebody that really needs to crunch pixels and edit a picture heavily, and that'd be interesting to see what parts of the industry will buy a 120 megapixel camera.
And there will be some.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody will. Yeah.
Something you said made me think. Tim and I are both hobbyists, so we don't have to worry about is the camera going to make a profit for us. We just have to worry about, am I willing to spend this much money on my hobby?
Right.
And sometimes the
And
answer
can I get it past my wife?
yeah, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. But I would imagine it as a you run a business and eventually wanting to do this full time, that at some point the gear has to turn into a tool. And hey, I just need the tool to do the job. And if my tool is currently doing the job, I got to really question whether I need to upgrade the tool. What is a new tool going to do for me that the old tool does not?
Yep.
Where it sounds like before you were like we are. Oh, I want that new thing.
Yes.
Look at that new camera.
Yeah, it's definitely everything. Especially now that I'm really focusing on that full time. Everything, every move that I make, every purchase that I make, I has to make sense back in some way. If it doesn't return a profit, then I'm not going to go and buy that. So fortunately, I had a sit-down session with some of my realtors, and I said, hey, the drone thing, is that something you guys want? Are you interested in it? Are you going to buy it? They said, absolutely. We want that. We're ready to pay for it. One guy even offered to buy it for me, but
wow.
I didn't want to. I was very grateful and happy, but at the same time, I was like, other realtors are going to want to use this, so I didn't want him to claim exclusivity or something, but. Yeah, so if it doesn't return a profit, I've just decided to stay away from it. So yeah, it's making sure that those tools are something that are going to be beneficial and necessary.
Yeah, very good. I don't. This whole conversation, I'm not telling anybody don't go buy these cameras. I mean, if you want one of these cameras, go buy it. That's your decision.
Yep.
I'm just, for me personally, I don't have any desire. And yeah, one of the Sony, one's a Canon, so they're not Nikons. But and I'm a Nikon shooter. I'd be saying the same thing if this was Nikon. I looked and thought about the D800, and if I could convince myself that it was worth the money to spend for the hobby, I would. That to me is in the ballpark. All right, I think I've got enough megapixels. But to be honest, I'm looking more at the 750 because if I remember right, and it's been a while since I looked, the 750 has a little bit faster frames per second.
Yes,
And
I think was it half or a full frame?
I think it's a full frame. And the one thing it doesn't do when you put on the grip, it doesn't add any more frames per second. Where the old 700, I can go from 6 frames per second to 8 frames per second by adding the grip. Huh. You don't get that with the 750. But 750 at 24 megapixels is, for me, that would probably be enough to last me for a foreseeable future. Oh, yeah. I can get what I need from sports. I can get what I need from landscape. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think it has nearly the same dynamic range of an 810, which to me is a little more important than dynamic range.
Randy Henderson bought one, and he loves it. I mean, his pictures haven't changed at all. He's got great photos, and they've gotten a lot more dynamic range in them. And I rented that camera. That's a great camera.
So with all that said, what if anything, either one of you guys think is missing from your camera that you'd like to see in a future camera? Tim, let's start with you.
What do I think is missing? Actually, I know the one thing that I actually want, and the reason I was considering is I shoot with a Sony A77. I actually was really hard considering the A7 II that just came out because I want the smaller camera. I think I'm at the point now where a lot of times I'm walking around and it's a lot to carry, especially I do a lot on vacation. It's not a problem when I'm taking pictures at a soccer game or something. I don't mind it there, but when I'm on vacation, I would like a smaller camera sometimes. And I see these new cameras, the mirrorless, they take just as good pictures as mine. I think that camera is missing some things that I would like. It doesn't focus as quickly as mine. It doesn't shoot as many frames per second as mine. So I'm not sold on that camera as I was a couple months ago, but I would like a smaller camera. As for features, no, I think maybe better ISO shooting in my camera would be good, but that's about it.
Yeah. Steven, how about you?
I really like the articulating screens. That kind of caters more to me, really, because sometimes I'm standing crammed in a corner or at a weird angle. But then that, and then also, I don't know why they put an on-camera flash on the D810. Sometimes it may come in handy. Sometimes I've never used it personally, but I would rather see Wi-Fi or GPS. Especially being in Rocky Mountain National Park a couple weeks ago, GPS would have been very nice if I could have mapped out my trip and everything.
Yeah, so I would like to have GPS in my camera too. Built-in GPS, built-in Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi could even be maybe something to your phone, where you can tag it to your phone and have photos that you tag on the camera, send the JPEG image to your phone, or maybe even a reduced image JPEG that you could post straight to Google Plus or Facebook or something like that. Using your phone as the collector
actually,
and sender.
I don't have it here, but here's the plug for it. I use this. I do commercial shoots sometimes. In fact, I just got a client that called me back. I don't know if you can read that. iFi?
Yeah,
iFi, yep.
I have that card. It's just like an SD card, and it shoots a Wi-Fi signal. And it's I think $65 is what I bought it for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be nice to have that capability because while I'm on the commercial shoot, this one was specifically for a barbershop, but I needed certain shots that she had to have. She gave me a list, so I'll beam it to an iPad, have her check off as they're popping through, and she can see, okay, this one's it, we got it, this one's it, we got it, and I'll have her sign off on the shots that we got and confirm that they're there. So that'd be nice just to have that built in and not have to go spend the $65 on something else.
I have an iFi card that I use because I was using an iPad program for editing pictures, Photosmith, and that was great. Like when I went away on vacation, I could keyword my photos. I really wish like Lightroom, the app that they have for the iPad, would allow it for keywords. I'm not going to edit my pictures for color corrections or anything on the iPad, but I sure as heck would sit there and when I had time, use it to put keywords on because I keyword every picture.
Yep. Yeah, the star rating's the only thing I've ever used that for. When I'm
Yeah.
on the go, if I have a few extra minutes, I'll turn on the iPad. Yes, no, 3 stars, flag it, reject
Exactly.
it. That's about all you can do on Lightroom Mobile. It's kind of a
Yeah, I'm surprised that keywording was not something they added.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I hope they'll have it in the future.
Yeah, Steven, you mentioned the on-camera flash for the 810, and that the 700 has on-camera flash too. And of course, it doesn't have a lot of use for me because it's dead on.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder why they never make the pop-up flash where it has a mode that will let it point up.
Point up. Yeah.
Yeah, why
It's
not?
probably not strong enough, that flash, as it is.
The only thing I've ever seen it have any use for is if you have another flash somewhere else and maybe you forgot your trigger or something like that, you can slave it and then be able to fire it with your on-camera flash. That's the only thing I can ever really think of.
Well, I guess if you use it in a bright setting and you just use it for light fill, that
Right, a
might-
little
that
fill
might work.
flash.
But Tim, maybe you're right that it wouldn't. I don't know. It's not as powerful as your hot shoe flash, of course.
Oh, not even close.
But if you're indoors and you got a 10-foot white ceiling, you might be able to add a decent amount of light by popping it straight up.
I still use my my regular
Carry an
flash.
index
then.
card.
Yep. Point it up, and I've done that. I've done that.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that was the main topic, but I have another one that's going to be very controversial, and I don't know where either one of you guys stand, but it's something that we want. This is not our official coverage of this topic. I need to have somebody on to talk about it, and Tim has no idea what I'm about to bring up. Neither does Steve.
No, it's not in the show notes, and I've really taken none on, but
But that is, I don't know if either one of you guys saw this over on Metapixel, but it's high school. I guess it was a senior photo shoot, and no one died in this image.
oh yeah, this is on the train track.
If you want to talk about the life of JPEG to RAW Facebook group, which is a very nice group, there's not a whole lot of bickering that goes on back and forth. But if you want to create bickering really fast, post a train track photo, and it's like you just posted dead children photos or something. It is people have very distinct views on train track photos. In this case, whether I think you are on one side of the track or the other, you have to look at this and go, that is just stupid.
Yeah.
This is a high school senior. I don't know if it was a professional photographer or whatever, but they went and took this shot, and you sat as a live moving train behind her on the one on the right, and they took that and then jumped out of the way.
I didn't even
That's
see
stupidity.
Yeah,
Wow.
that is stupidity. And she posted this online, and of course she's a high school person, so she's underage, and that's why they're blacking out or pinking out her face. But she even posted online. What was the quote? Let me find it. She says it was super close, and of course she's getting people say unique idea, stuff like that. And where did she?
Not everyone probably knows it's illegal.
No, I was going to say it is illegal to do that.
Right, it is. But I'm sure that's not common knowledge unless you're probably a photographer and you're well aware of that.
Yeah. No, I think that probably most people don't know that that's illegal. But she says, had a little fun with fear today, did an amazing job snapping some shots, and yes, the train is moving.
Ugh.
I mean, she
And
doesn't
see,
say how fast it's moving, but I mean, how easy it is. I mean, you're in between the tracks. I don't know if she's wearing heels. I can't really tell, but you could easily trip as you're trying to jump out of the way, and now you're dead. That's not cool.
She's wearing flats, looks like. But and so this is where I need to have somebody who's more knowledgeable of these topics come on, and we've had several people that have put me in touch with some people from the train industry who talk to photographers about this. I need to get them to come on, because one of the struggles I have with getting too emotional about this is, dude, it's a train, just jump out of the way. It's loud as crap. How do you not see it come? Now, I understand if you're on a corner where you have very little visibility, but I know where the tracks are that I can see a mile in either direction, and I can't, even if it's doing 90 miles an hour, which they don't do it through this area, I can't imagine not being able to jump 10 feet out of the way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run parallel with the tracks.
Right. Yeah, I'm fortunate in my community. We have a little toy train with little miniature tracks, and if you sit far enough away or close enough on it, they look bigger or smaller, but it's nothing you have to worry about. So I'm fortunate in that aspect. But especially I wonder how close this was to the news article about the producer that got someone killed in his crew.
Yeah.
That kind of solidified for me. Until then, I wasn't too big of a stickler on it, but until then, and I actually saw in the news that someone died from it, it was kind of like, okay, well, that's a very real possibility.
Right. And I made the comments, how come you can't get out of the way? But I say that, and people die all the time, getting run over by trains. So something is happening that I don't quite understand on how these people are getting run over by trains. And I understand if you're in the middle of the bridge and you're going to have to run to get out of the way, but if all you got to do is go left or right, off the tracks, and I know it has overhang, but I would get 10 feet off the tracks, and I'm not the fastest guy at my age and shape.
Not the most fleet of foot there, Mike?
Yeah, but I would think I could get out of the way.
It seems like you'd be able to, yeah.
But people get run over all the time. Now, that said, if you were taking the shot of this girl and she's a client, or heck, even if you just convinced her to go there, wow, you were assuming.
You better have some really good liability insurance.
I don't know if your liability insurance will help you.
That would be
Probably not.
Because you're right, Stephen. It is a crime to be on these tracks.
Right, that'd be negligence. So,
yes, and your insurance may not even cover you if you're alive to worry about it. Maybe your family's having to worry about this. But if you got someone killed, and in the process of a photo shoot, and you survived, I mean that's
well, you're probably going to jail. So I don't think the insurance. I don't think the insurance is a problem because it's probably going to get considered manslaughter if you're the photographer person that survives and you put the person there. I think if you're the client that gets there, well, no, he told me to stand there. They'll weasel out of it, but I think the photographer is the one that'll be held to the higher standard.
Person holding the camera.
Yep.
That's something that always crosses my mind, and whether it's train tracks or not, just what am I doing with my client? What situation am I asking to put them in? I mean, sometimes it's not that extreme, but there will be times where I'll have them standing. There's a little waterfall and a kind of a river here at our local park, and it's like, okay, well, I don't want to get them too close because if they trip and fall back into the water and hit their head, that's my fault. I asked them to go there, and so I'll always be cautious with where I'm putting my client and what situation I'm going to put them into. So that's definitely something that we need to be conscious of.
Well, I'm going to work on getting somebody to come on that can enlighten me. Again, I am saying stay off the track. So I'm not as passionate as some other people about it, but I am advising you not to go on the tracks. And if you have like you said, Stephen, a place where you can go that are not active tracks that are meant for those type of things, that's the ideal place. The only thing where some people who are passionate about this, they would say that you take these realistic looking train track photos and somebody else gets in their mind, they don't realize that it's a non-active track.
Right.
And they may go on an active track to take photos and then end up dead.
I got torn apart at first when I posted that in our group. I didn't have the time to explain they were toy train tracks. So like, no, wait, they're just small. Don't worry.
I think every one of those has ever happened. We've had to close the thread because, all right, people have made your point.
Yep.
Let's close the thread and move on to something else. Because, the first rule of the group is be nice. Mm-hmm. And some of them degrade into not being nice, so we shut it off. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Facebook group, as this was going to be a short show, and I think we're going to stretch it all the way to the hour mark. But speaking of the Facebook group, there's something I'm getting excited about, something we're doing year 3 on, I think it is, Tim. And that is the best of the year photo contest.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
So one thing we do different for the best of the year photo contest is we do have prizes. We don't have it for the monthly one. For the monthly one, you just get your photo at the top of the group. Like you see here, Gina Perry won the August one. She gets her photo at the top of the group. And I posted some various places. So, if you care about those things, you get your photo in different places on the Facebook page, on the group and the forums and that kind of stuff. But for the December one, which is your best photo taken in the year, so this year will be any photo taken in 2015 that you took, we have cash prizes or prizes. I don't know if they're not cash prizes. But first place gets a $100 Amazon gift card, Amazon.com gift card. If you're overseas, then we'll have to see what we can work out. I don't want to have to pay a whole bunch of. If the denomination change means I'm paying $150, you may not get $100. It's $100.
Mike has promised to make up the difference with his own personal money. If we...
$100. And
the accountant Mike ain't gonna let that happen.
So if you're outside the U.S., I can't guarantee anything. But inside the U.S., it is a $100 Amazon.com gift card for first place. $50 what's that?
Will they deliver that by drone?
Maybe it is a drone. $50 Amazon gift card for second place, and $25 Amazon gift card for third place. In addition, this year we're also Blake Rudis, who was our guest last week. He is going to donate something for each level. We're still working out the details, but I think it's going to be something pretty good for each level. And I'm working with some other people to get some more stuff for each level for the top 1, 2, and 3. And we're gonna repeat what we did last year, where the regular admins review the image. What typically happens is we review all the entries, boil it down to 3, and then do a detailed review on the 3, where you're basically grading on 5 or 6 different categories on a scale of 1 to 10. Then we add up all those points from each judge, and whoever had the most points wins. In the case of a tie, which rarely happens, but it happens, then we go to tiebreaker, which is who won the most categories. Because, if you got 5 categories, who won more categories than somebody else? And we've never had to figure out what the second tiebreaker would be. But for the year-end one, what we're going to do is we're going to have the admins do the first review, and then select 5 images. And those 5 images will then be reviewed by a panel of what we call celebrity judges. and those are people that are not any of the admins, and including me. And they will rate them on those categories. You're not a
celebrity. We knew that anyway.
Yeah, they will rate them on those categories and give some feedback. And last year we had Mark Johnson. We had A.D. Wheeler, Andy Bloxham, I think is his last name, Kathleen Bobie, and Ron Clifford. Those 3 guys. Ron and Andy are both part of the Ron and A.D. Wheeler, both part of the Arcanum with Trey Ratcliffe, and all of those people have been guests on the show at some point in time. I don't know who we're going to get this year. I'd love to get Blake, who was on last week, and we'll get some other people who are going to be celebrity judges. But we'll do the celebrity judge thing again this year. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to get started a little earlier this year with that, Tim, and see if we can get more prizes for the people this year.
Did you say that was open category?
Open category, yes.
Okay. Your best photo of the year.
We were doing
of 2015.
We were doing before the monthly things where we were doing them themed, a certain topic, and those were popular. But I think people got a little tired of the theme. So right now we're doing open theme every month. If you want to, if you say I don't want to wait till then, Mike, I want to be entering now. You can be entering right now. We're doing a September photo contest, and it's an open theme. So we're probably going to run out the year with open themes. We'll bring back themed shoots at some point in the future, but right now we're just doing open themes. And if the way we are able to, here comes my transition, Tim. The way we're able to do these Amazon gift cards is when you use our Amazon link. Now, so how do you use the Amazon link? Is just JPEG to RAW, JPEG to the number 2 to raw.com/Amazon. You use that when you go to Amazon, and then you go buy whatever you're going to buy. It can be shoes, it can be a T-shirt, it can be anything you want, or it can be photo gear. We get a small credit. I was talking to my mom last night.
And it doesn't cost you anything extra.
It doesn't cost you anything extra. And unless you tell me, Mike, I bought this, I have no idea who bought what. So you don't have to worry about, I don't want Mike knowing I bought this book or this shirt or something like that. Mike doesn't know. My mom called me last night, or I talked to my mom last night, Tim. This is going to be a sad story. And she says, you finally convinced me to get Prime. I bought Amazon Prime. I had bought her an Amazon Echo, that little cylinder thing you can talk to. And that's their Christmas gift. And I said, hey, you can do more with it if you have Prime. You need to get Prime. I've been telling her this for a while. So last night she told me she finally bought Prime. And I said, that's awesome. I'll look for the credit. And you know, when we let's see if we get the credit. And I don't have no idea what kind of credit we get if somebody uses Prime. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, you used our link, right? You used jpegtoraw.com/Amazon. Oh, no, I don't, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. So I can't even convince my own mom to do this. I'm hoping some of you, if you don't know how to do it, at the top of every page on our website, jpegtoraw.com, there is the word Amazon. If you click on that, that'll take you right to Amazon, and then you can go do what you want. You could just type in jpegtoraw.com/Amazon into your browser, and then you'll be there. There's also Amazon links throughout the page, throughout the website, where you can click on those. And in our Facebook group, there's a link there too. The easiest thing to do is, as soon as you do jpegtoraw.com/Amazon and hit enter and go to Amazon, is then bookmark that initial page before you go anywhere else. Bookmark that page as your Amazon page, and then that, you know, whether you're in Chrome or IE or Safari or whatever you're in, bookmark that as your Amazon, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
That's what I did.
We'll get credit every time.
Yep.
So Tim and I have mentioned this before. Tim and I do not do this for money. This show is not a moneymaker in any way for us. It's a money loser. But we take all the money that we get from the Amazon link and do things like that giveaway. I know for the photo contest. 2 more things we're going to have, Tim, for the end is we're going to give away. Remember we had the Lightroom Queen on?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give away her Lightroom 6 book.
That's a great book.
I'm going to give that one away. And then Greg, what was it, Greg Benz? Who did the Luminosity?
Yeah, that's it was Greg.
I
I don't know if that was his last name, but probably was.
I hope so. we have 2 of his Luminosity, Luminessa or whatever. What was the name of that?
Luminosity. Luminens. Lumenzia.
We have 2 of his Lumenzia plugins for Photoshop. We're going to give those away too, along with the year-end contest. So it's already shaping up really good. The easiest way to enter that is to join our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/JPEG-to-RAW. That's the easiest way to enter. You can also enter through our website. We have an entry form there. You go in the upper left-hand corner. There's a photo contest tag there. You can go there and do it. But you can do it. The best way to do it is through our Facebook group. There you would meet Steven. He's out there posting. Steven, today, I think you joined we have a smaller group, which is our sports group. We're starting to get some activity in there. Tim, I don't know if you're in that group, but we have Roger and Dean who are posting some great sports shots in there. Roger wrote up some really long how-to things on, I think, baseball and something else. Some great posts that he did in our sports group. So the easiest thing to do is just go to Facebook and then search for JPEG-to-RAW, and you'll find several groups.
I'll have to add a photo there.
And then, the other link we have that we were talking with Blake about last week is Topaz Labs. If you're going to buy any Topaz Labs products, go to jpegtoraw.com/Topaz Labs. There's also a link at the top of every page on our site where we'll get a small credit from that too. So if you're going to buy any of those things, keep us in mind before you go buy them. Guys, that's all I have for this week. Next week we're off because Tim is going to a baseball game where he's going to see his home team, the Mets, right?
Absolutely. And you can take on your home team.
Play my home team, the Braves. Tim, I'm not that much into baseball. I am so happy football season has started. So I don't. You don't have to tease me about if we lose. I don't care.
Okay. Hopefully you do.
That's fine. My wife won't be happy. She does like the Braves, but I don't care. All right, guys, that's all I have for this week. And until next show, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
See you guys.